Greetings. Now, art is a hot button topic that many have a conflict over. I'll explain. First, Islam, a religion of over 1 billion people, generally forbids any drawing, painting, sculpture, or figurine of anything human or animal. This often includes forbidding children to have dolls, stuffed animals, or toy soldiers, and restrictions on photos. Most Protestant Christian believers object to statues or pictures of a religious nature, claiming they are graven images. But a graven image is a false representation of God. So if someone does not think that God is restricted to a certain image, and the image is not blasphemous, then there's nothing wrong with it. The legitimacy of religious icons was upheld long ago. The church, when it was one united and worldwide unit, approved religious icons at the Seventh Ecumenical Council in AD 787 and rebuked those who caused trouble by fighting to eradicate them. Some Christian believers, while approving of religious pictures, condemn religious statues or figurines as supposedly being idols. Yet, if it's not worshipped as a false god, it's not an idol. Consider the golden cherubim atop the Ark of the Covenant in Exodus chapter 25. So avoid unnecessary conflicts that would divide the body of Christ. Christians, reread Romans chapter 14 carefully. Others condemn modern art, that is, abstract art, as being aesthetic relativism or as representing or promoting moral degeneracy. Others deny that modern art is actually art. But unless what is labeled art is just as simple as a frame containing one solid color and a couple of specks, I completely disagree, as art is heavily dependent on subjective opinion. A professor attempted to negate abstract art. He presented his class with a so-called painting and said, "Please analyze this Jackson Pollock painting and explain why it's good." After the class gave complimentary answers, he revealed that it was actually his used painter's apron. However, it probably took the apron longer to accumulate the interesting paint splotches than it took to produce a painting. I recommend seeing YouTube videos titled along the lines of, "When Accidental Art is Better Than Your Actual Art." I'm an astronomy buff and see natural formations in outer space as works of abstract art. Some of my favorite, which have appeared on Google Images, are Helix Nebula, NGC 7293, Antenna Galaxies, NGC 4038 and 4039, Open Star Cluster, NGC 290, Jewel Box Star Cluster, NGC 4755, Carina Nebula, NGC 3372, Owl Star Cluster, NGC 457, Starburst Galaxy, M82, Westerland Star Cluster, WD1, Rosette Nebula, Caldwell 49, Cotton Candy Nebula, N11, and Star Cluster, NGC 346. Many natural formations are impossible to create by artistic human hands, while others are harder to create than typical art. For example, despite the criticism of a 340-ton naturally formed rock in an art museum, it would probably be harder to form and transport something similar than sculpting something out of a rock. I generally agree that realistic-looking art takes far more time, effort, and talent than abstract art. However, we are living in the time after the advent of color photography. Photographs can exceed the realism of the most realistic-looking pieces of art, can be produced much faster, and can be mass-produced. And of course, we have videos. However, it's still quite difficult, if not impossible, to produce the surreal through photography to everyone's satisfaction. So that's undoubtedly the main reason why realism in art has been largely replaced with modern abstraction, not for any subversive reason. There is another form of art called Impressionism, which is neither realistic nor abstract. And there are many small gradations between extreme realism and typical Impressionism, and many small gradations between typical Impressionism and absolute abstraction. That's certainly another reason why we should not be judgmental against any of these art forms or their appreciators. However, there is a type of so-called art that is terrible, that should not be accepted. They are pieces, depictions, or compositions whose primary purpose is to offend, such as an American flag lying on a dirty floor, cartoons mocking Muhammad, or a crucifix immersed in urine. They also include works whose primary purpose is to shock or stir up lust, such as a photo of a bullwhip sticking out of a man's anus. These works, which have been publicly displayed in art museums, should be banned and prohibited. However, all other art forms that are a source of beauty and inspiration should be accepted without dispute. And what is more important than man-made art is the wonderfulness of God's creation. So we, as God's appointed stewards over creation, should do everything we can to end the suffering of all his creatures, stop the destruction of our natural world, and nurture the beauty and wonder of our environment. Take care.